Hey there again, everybody. GleeCon here to bring you the next chapter of Warcraft, the movie, the novel, chapter 15. Chapter 14, we saw there was an ambush at Blackrock Mountain. Orgrim Doomhammer betrayed Duraton and attacked King Lane, Lothar, Garona, and Callan, Lothar's son. And at the end of that, they did manage to kind of get away, being saved by Medivh, but also came at the life of Callan, which was a big emotional blow for Lothar, as one would imagine. So stay a while as we continue reading this book and listen. Chapter 15. Draka was a warrior. Until now, her place had always been fighting at the side of the orc who was her husband, chieftain, and best friend. The birth of their yet unnamed baby here in this new fertile but hostile world had changed all that. The infant was not just her child, or the son of the chieftain. He was the clan's child, the only one born to the Frostwolves in far too long, and despite his unsettling coloring, he was loved by all of them. In addition, there were few orcs here in Azeroth who were not needed almost daily to fight. She had shared her husband's sentiments regarding Gul'dan, his evil magic, and the wrongness of this battle against the humans, but every moment that they were separated was a trial. It was one thing to go into battle together knowing death was a possibility. It was another to be left behind to wait, not knowing anything at all. As if sensing her distress, the baby started to fuss in his basket, opening those beautiful, peculiar blue eyes and reaching out his tiny fists to her. Gently, Draka took one of the little hands in hers and kissed it. "This hand will hurl your father's spear, Thunderstrike," she told him. "Or maybe you would prefer the great axe, Sever." The baby gurgled, seemingly happy with whichever weapon he would wield someday in the future, and the trepidation in her heart eased somewhat. "My precious little warrior," she murmured, "you are a true orc no matter your skin color. We will teach you that." He had drifted off to sleep when the hanging skin that served as a door was flung aside. It was Duraton, sweating, panting, every line of his body telling her before he even spoke that everything had fallen apart. He clasped her close for a moment, then told her quickly what had happened. She said nothing, but kept shaking her head. No, this could not be. Orgrim could not, would never betray them. But he had. "You and the baby must leave," Duraton said when he had finished. He reached for the infant, lifting him tenderly, even in this moment of crisis. "No!" A shape moved to fill the doorway. Blackhand. He was spattered with gore, but had no weapon. He did not need one. Not anymore. The claw where his hand had once been would serve. He seized Duraton by his scalp and hauled him backward. The baby, cupped in his father's palm, squalled. "You are a traitor, Duraton!" Blackhand bellowed. Everything in Draka urged her to attack, but instead she kept her eyes on Duraton. He was not fighting, not with weapons, and she would follow his lead. "No," Duraton spoke calmly and from a deep place of certainty. "One who values what we once were, like you used to." "That time is past," he said angrily, then more softly. "We are but fuel for the fell now." The war chief's face held not fury or hatred, but only detached melancholy. Draka was moved to speak, surprising even herself. "We are more than that. You are more than that. There is still hope, Blackhand. We do not have to take another step down this path." Blackhand looked at her, his eyes narrowing, then down at Duraton. For a long, tense moment, the three stood while the child cried. Then, growling, Blackhand released her mate, shoving him away. Duraton went at once to Draka, giving their child to her. She clasped the infant close. There was still no anger in Blackhand's voice when he spoke, but even so Draka's heart ached with despair. "Do not make me take more innocent lives, young chieftain." She held the baby tighter still, her eyes darting from Blackhand to Duraton. Duraton straightened, steadying himself. "If I submit." Draka's hand shot out and gripped her mate's arm, her nails digging into his flesh. He kept his gaze on the war chief. He continued, "Will you leave my people be?" Blackhand did not answer. Draka knew that he could not. He was the war chief, but he answered to Gul'dan. Blackhand knew it too. He merely opened the tent flap and waited. A chieftain must always do what is best for his people, Draka recalled. She refused to utter the sob, to give voice to the sound of her breaking heart. She would show her husband courage, and besides, she thought with determination, I will not let this be the end. When her heart turned to her, she made sure he would only see determination and love in her eyes as he gazed intently into them. They were frost wolves. They knew they loved. They would make no scene in front of Blackhand. Whatever happens. I thought of a name, she had said to him. I'll choose the name when I've met him or her. And how will the great Durotan name his son if I do not travel with him? What will I call our son? She asked him, chagrined but unashamed that her voice broke. Durotan lowered his gaze to his son, and for a moment his composure slipped as he caressed the tiny head with unspeakable tenderness. Goel, he said, and it was at that moment that she knew he did not believe he would return. He caressed her chin with one finger, then he turned to Blackhand, striding out of the tent and out of her life, but never out of her heart. Blackhand looked at her for a moment, his expression unreadable, then he followed. The great spear thunderstrike, which had belonged to Durotan and Garad and to Durkosh before them, fell from where the Frostwolf chieftain had placed it, to land on the hard-packed earth. Slowly, Medivh opened his eyes, blinking. He remembered the battles, one he had shared with Lothar and Lane, fighting alongside them as he had before in earlier times. He recalled the orcs and the wall of lightning, but there had been another, a battle in which his friends could have no part. Before he could help them, Medivh had been forced to struggle against the hooded figure that seemed to him to be formed out of the Thunderheads themselves, a figure whose eyes glowed green. He forced the image away. He had not succumbed. He had stood with his friends. He realized he was back in Karazhan, but could not remember traveling here. He turned his head and saw her. You. Warmth filled him, and he smiled at Garona. She sighed a little, relieved at seeing him awake. His eyes took her in, so strong, so beautiful, and so proud, despite everything she had seen, everything that had been done to her. Where's the old man? He asked me to watch you, she replied. He did. Thank you, Moros. The pleasure ebbed somewhat. He asked, almost afraid to know the answer. And the king? He is alive, she reassured him. Thank the light. But her next words dimmed his pleasure. Lothar's son is dead. Not Cowan. Medivh closed his eyes and sighed, pained. He had not known the boy well. Lothar had always kept his son at a distance, not only from himself, but from others. It had been Taria's kindness that had found Callan a place in the King's Guard, not Lothar. I do not think Durotan knew about the ambush. Garona spoke intensely. Medivh wondered where this was going. I agree. I argued for the meeting, Garona continued. Her dark eyes were pools of regret. Lothar will hate me. As Medivh himself well knew, 6 years could change a man. He did not know if in truth Lothar would hate the orc woman sitting beside him, and so did not tell her no. That upsets you, he said instead. He is a great warrior, she continued. Her cheeks darkened slightly. He defends his people well. Ah, thought Medivh. Anduin. Made sense. He examined his feelings for a moment and then made a decision. A good mate for an orc, he said carefully. Garona frowned and shook her head. I am no orc. I am no human either. I am cursed. I am Garona. The self-loathing and hopelessness in her voice made him ache. He regarded her for a long moment, then made a decision. When I was younger, Medivh began, letting the words come as they would. I used to feel apart from my kin, part of the Kirin Tool, but not really. The project, the pet, separated from his blood family, creating a family. Oh, in the company of 2 devil-may-care companions in the aftermath of their adventures, I traveled far and wide looking for wisdom, to feel a connection with all the souls I was charged with protecting. Garona listened with her whole body, eyes wide, nostrils flaring as she breathed. Orcish concentration, he thought, and a bittersweet ache such as he had not felt for years gripped his heart. On my travels, I met a strong and noble people, among them a female, who accepted me for what I was, loved me. Part of him did not want to continue. This was his burden, his great joy and secret, his and his alone, except it wasn't. It couldn't, shouldn't be. He paused before continuing, meeting her gaze steadily. It was not a life I was fated to have, but it taught me something. If love is what you need, he said softly, his voice trembling with intensity. You must be willing to travel to the ends of the world to find it. Beyond, even. So here in this version of the timeline, it seems like he is Garona's father. That is not the current. It is closer to what the original Warcraft Orcs and Humans idea was. Maybe it's not even matched up with that. Originally, Garona was half human, half orc. In the way they first drew it up, it was because the orcs had kind of lingered in near the Black Morass for years, and Garona had time in that like point of time timeline. She had time to be like a war child of a orc and human out like fringe area. Then they accelerated the timeline in further years, and she eventually was recast as half Draenei, half orc. So here we're somewhere in between. She's still half human, half orc, but she is the child of Medivh. Interesting. Garona looked down for a moment, emotions warring on her face, usually so closed. You left your mate. Go find Lothar, he said sharply. He looked away. Even now, even with her, this he could not share. There was so much he wanted to tell her, but now was not the time. Maybe afterward, if there was an afterward. I must stay and watch you. Honor, loyalty, things he had loved so much about. Medivh squeezed her shoulder. That is Moros's job, he said. Medivh was still weak, but strong enough for what he needed to do now. He rose from the couch, moving his hands deftly, effortlessly conjuring a circle for her. It was no great mystery to him where Lothar would be at this moment. Part of Medivh's energy came, of course, from the magical font's healing, but part of it was his own doing, his choices, his decision to finally, after so many mistakes and disasters and broken lives as consequence, do something good, something right, something true and worthy of the one he had loved so long ago. Loved, lost, but never forgotten, not for a day, an hour, a moment. He would pay dearly for what he was doing, but that was all right. Some things were worth the cost. This is for you, my heart. She stared as the circle shimmered into being, pulsing, radiating blue light. Medivh reached and gathered a small bit of magical energy into his hand and crafted a small, perfect flower. It was exquisite and beautiful, light made into a palpable thing, its hues shifting like an ember in a blue fire. Garona had seen him work magic before, dangerous magic designed to cause harm, but this was only for healing, for hope. She understood that as he knew she would, and her eyes were wide and soft with wonder. Step inside the circle, he instructed. Garona looked at him, then the circle, then slowly, mesmerized, moving more delicately than he had ever seen any orc save one move. She obeyed. This, Medivh said, his voice rough with emotion as he held out the luminous flower, is my gift to you. He allowed himself to savor this moment, giving her no hint as to what this was costing him. She accepted it, her green fingers closing so very gently around the magical flower, looking first at it, then at him. Peace filled him, and he stepped back. The circle's white illumination spread upward, becoming a sphere encasing Garona safely within its cocoon. The white glow increased, its brightness becoming almost blinding. Then it disappeared, Garona along with it. Medivh collapsed. The Lion of Azeroth had been drinking. He lay outstretched on the bar in the Lion's Pride Inn, surrounded by empty bottles. An equally empty tankard dangled from his fingers. His eyes were closed, and Garona wondered if he was unconscious. She took a step forward, trying to move quietly, but even so Lothar heard her, and his eyes opened. He didn't look at her, but kept his gaze fixed on the ceiling. Garona wondered if she should have come. Perhaps Medivh had been wrong. Perhaps this was foolishness to think that a human could care for an orc, particularly one who could easily be held responsible for the brutal murder of his only child. But she thought of the Guardian's words. She was here. She would speak. At least she would know that she had tried. I'm sorry. He didn't answer, and Garona had almost turned to leave when at last he spoke. Callum's mother died in childbirth. I blamed him for it for years. I'm not going to blame you. His voice was less slurred than Garona had expected, and he was obviously aiming for a conversational, relaxed tone, but she who had tasted so much pain could recognize its sharp, bitter notes in the voice of another. Her eyes widened at the words. Lothar had been carrying such a burden. She moved forward. He sat up and slipped off the bar, stepping back as she drew closer. She halted. He looked almost as awful as Medivh, pale save where his cheeks were flushed with drink. His eyes were bloodshot and swollen, and he trembled. Suddenly he whirled, flinging the tankard against the wall. It shattered with a musical crash. He was in a place Garona knew well, a place where anger and grief and guilt collided in an unholy trinity of torment. He was a soldier without his armor in front of her now, raw and aching and unable to hide any of it. She stepped forward, reaching to touch his face, wanting to do whatever she could to ease a pain that was obviously ripping him apart. He was so young, Lothar whispered. His eyes were red from weeping. She trailed her lips over his bearded cheek, mindful of the sharpness of her tusks, then pulled back, gazing at him. My whole life, he rasped. I've never felt as much pain as I do now. Lothar's voice and Garona's heart broke on the last word. Then he whispered, Garona understood at once. Her whole life, she, the cursed, had been in pain. It was never the physical pain of broken bones or ripped skin that hurt the most. It was the pain that stitches and poultices and healing draughts could not mend. The pain of the soul, the heart. More than once she had found healing, respite from that torment in physical pain, which provided a distraction and allowed the spirit to somehow find its own way. Sometimes it did not work, but sometimes it did. He lifted his eyes to her, and if there had been any question that she loved and that she belonged here at this moment, it vanished like mist beneath the sun. She reached out to him, gently touching his face. He closed his eyes and ears, warm and wet, slipped beneath the tightly shut lids. Then, slowly, ready to stop if he did not wish this, Garona began to dig in her nails. His eyes flew open wide, and in those blue depths Garona saw desire. Lothar reached out, pulled her to him, and pressed his mouth on hers. And then there was no pain at all. So in this timeline also, Lothar and Garona are an item. Weird. Also, considering if it's Medivh's child, that means he's also old enough to be her dad as well. All right, everybody. That's another one. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it. We will watch it. I'll read another episode on the next time. And we will, keep this journey rolling. Thanks, everyone. We got another episode in the pipe, 5x5.